Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to today's video. Today is the last day of July, so I wanted to do a reading wrap up, but both June and July have been really good reading months for me, so I want to include the books that I read in June as well as the books that I read in July, so it's going to be a June and July reading wrap up. So let's just go ahead and jump into the books that I read in June. In June I read a total of 9 books, 6 of which were romance, no surprise there. And then I read 1 lit fic, 1 mystery thriller, and 1 fantasy. So the 1 fantasy book I read in June was City of Bones. This is the first book of the Mortal Instruments series, and in this book we're following Clare, who believes she's just a normal teenager until she's suddenly able to start seeing like things that other people can't see, and then very quickly she gets swept up into this shadow hunter world that's full of like demons, vampires, werewolves, warlocks, and then I believe they also have like magical tattoos. There's definitely a magic system in this book, I just don't really remember it that well, but I enjoyed this one. The writing was really easy, the world building wasn't too like in-depth or too detailed and complex. It was also fast-paced and I had a really fun time reading it. I feel like there was always something going on to the point where I was never bored, so I definitely enjoyed this one and I definitely want to continue this series, but I ended up giving this first book 3.5 stars. I also didn't really understand the plot twist at the end between our 2 main characters, and I'm really interested to see like how that dynamic is going to shift in the next like books, so I definitely want to continue it and I gave it 3.5 stars. And then the 1 mystery thriller I read was The Inmate by Freida Mcfadden. I usually read Freida Mcfadden books kind of like a palate cleanser in between like big series or like a bunch of romances, so I read this one as a palate cleanser and I actually really enjoyed this one. The plot twist at the end definitely got me. I was definitely like, wait, what? But I feel like when I'm reading mystery thrillers, I'm not like looking for plot holes or like super trying to figure it out on my own. A lot of the times I feel like I know what the big surprise is or like what the big plot twist is gonna be, and then I'm either completely wrong or like another plot twist comes. That's why I love Freida Mcfadden books, so like I really never know what I'm gonna get out of them and I always just have a great time. I think I ended up giving this one 4 stars. 1 lit fic I read was Malibu Rising by Tahereh Jenkins. Tahereh Jenkins is low-key a hit or miss author with me. Majority of her books I love, but a couple of them I had a really hard time getting through and I kind of just get stuck in the middle. And unfortunately that was one of these books because I had such high expectations for this book and I feel like not a lot happened. I feel like the plot didn't really move forward at all. Even though it's like following one day, I just feel like we got a lot more of the past storyline and the past timeline than we did with the present timeline and the present like characters. So I don't know how I feel about this one. I think the story was written beautifully. I was just expecting a little more. Some of the characters I kind of felt like were just lacking in some aspects, but then our other main characters I really loved and enjoyed. So I don't really know how I feel about this one. I definitely got bored like halfway through and I definitely stopped caring by the time we got to the end. I ended up rating this one 3 stars. Let's talk about the romances I read in June. The first one I want to talk about is Summer in the City by Aster. This was Aster's first romance novel and I absolutely loved it. I feel like her writing in this book was so cute and I loved our 2 main characters. I feel like we got a lot of detail about them like getting to know each other rather than them just having like a physical connection, because in this book our 2 main characters are actually kind of rivals. They met a couple years ago at a nightclub in California and it didn't go very well, and then somehow 2 years later she's in the city to write a screenplay and he's there to make some tech deal or whatever, but they end up being like neighbors in the same hotel. They obviously keep bumping into each other and spending time together, and I just really loved like the progression of their relationship from rivals to friends to lovers. I feel like it was the perfect pace, so I really enjoyed this book. It was really cute and I think it's actually being turned into a movie, which I am so excited for. So I hope that Aster continues to write like rom-com-y books because I absolutely loved this. And I gave it 5 stars, so definitely check this one out if you haven't read this one yet. Then I have Bookshop by the Sea by Denise. This is a book that actually really took me by surprise because I picked this one up at a thrift store a couple of years ago and it's seriously been sitting on my shelf for years. Every summer I would tell myself to read this one and the summer I finally got around to it. Our main character Sophie is opening a bookstore in this coastal town and it was like her and her mom's shared dream, but her mom has passed away and her ex-boyfriend is in town for a wedding and and they end up having to stay together and bunk together at this house. So it's forced proximity and second chance romance, but the way that the story progresses was really good, and I really enjoyed the end. She's in this town that's basically full of readers and people who love like to read, and they're all so excited that she's opening a bookstore in their town, so they're all very supportive and they all kind of come together at the end and rally at the end. It's really a heartfelt book to read, and I was actually so surprised because I've never heard of this author before, and this book has seriously been sitting on my shelf for years. So I really enjoyed it. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. And then I read Reckless by Elsie Silver. This is the 4th book of the Chestnut Spring series, and in this book we're following Theo and Winter. Theo is a professional bull rider, and then Winter just left her like toxic marriage and is moving closer to her sisters who live in Chestnut Springs, and her and Theo end up having a one-night stand, and then she gets pregnant and he leaves on tour. I didn't really care for this book just because I feel like she had so many chances of telling the people around her that the kid was Theo's, and she kind of just kept it a secret for a long time. And I honestly feel like our couple was just so surface level. I didn't really care anytime they were like on screen. It all just felt kind of cringy in my opinion. But I do love the Chestnut Spring series, so I loved being back in this world. I loved seeing these people again, but I just didn't enjoy this one, so I ended up giving this one 3 stars. And then I read another one of my most anticipated reads in June, and that was Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. I absolutely love Emily Henry's books. The only book that I had rated below 4 stars for Emily Henry was People We Meet on Vacation, but unfortunately this one has joined it in the 3-star range because I just did not care for the main story that was being told through like the interview, because our 2 main characters here, they're competing for a spot to do an interview on like this famous heiress who lives on this like secluded coastal town, and I just did not care for the story that she was telling through the interview. I found myself very bored with it, and I honestly couldn't even tell you like where the story was going with the interview. Like it made no sense to me, to be honest. But I did care for the subplot of romance between our 2 main characters, so that's what kind of saved it for me. So 3 stars. Then I read Deepened by Hazelwood. This is a college swimmer diver romance, and I really enjoyed it. The only thing I didn't like was the fact that their relationship was built on a physical connection in the beginning, and the relationship again felt kind of surface level throughout the whole book. I feel like they didn't spend that much time together, and when they did spend time together it wasn't like quality time, if you know what I mean. I feel like Hazelwood typically sticks to like academia romances, like STEM romances, but she did so good with the sports romance. I feel like she did a good job at balancing the aspects of the sports and the romance. I feel like she did a good job at mixing those and making it not too sport heavy and not too romance heavy. So I enjoyed it. I had a fun time. The writing was fast, fun, and flirty, which is exactly what you want in a sports rom-com, so I ended up giving this book 4 stars. Then I read Taming 7 by Chloe Walsh. This is the 5th book of the Boys of Tommen series, and I love Gibbsy and Clare. I feel like I have wanted to read their book ever since I started this series because Gibbsy is just so funny on his own. Like throughout all of the books, he's always made me laugh. He's always been like a comic relief. And then Clare has just always been so iconic in my head, and I was just so glad that we finally got to see more of their like friendship and their relationship form and everything. I also really enjoy how much we got to learn about Gibbsy in this book. I feel like it was very heavy, but it was very much needed information to kind of understand the way that Gibbsy is. So I definitely enjoyed it. One thing I didn't like about this book is how much of Lizzie we get. Like I feel like I wanted more of Gibbsy and Clare together, and I didn't get a lot of it, so I'm definitely hoping that we get another book for Gibbsy and Clare because this is a short book. I think this might be the shortest book in the series, and this is one of my favorite couples in the series. So like I just wish we had a little bit more of Gibbsy and Clare and a little less of Lizzie. So I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars. I definitely do want to read Releasing 10. So those are the 9 books that I read in June. Now let's move on to the books that I read in July. In July, I read a total of 6 books, 4 of which were romance and 2 of which were fantasy. I'm going to start with the fantasy. The first book I want to talk about is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This book I had been wanting to read for so long, and I finally got around to it, and let me tell you, it did not disappoint. This is a dark academia fantasy set in the Yale setting. Our main character Alex can see the dead, and she has a very traumatic past, but the fact that she can see the dead gets her a full ride scholarship to Yale, with the one exception that she has to join Ninth House. Ninth House is like the secret society that oversees the other 8 more powerful secret societies. They make sure that the magic is being kept to what they're allowed to do and not like being like told to outsiders or anything like that. They're kind of just like overseeing the magical use between the 8 secret societies. I would definitely read the trigger warnings before jumping into this book. There is some graphic assault, some drug abuse, and like some occult activity, so definitely read the trigger warnings. But it was really interesting, very immersive read. I would say that the pacing was a little slow in the beginning, and there's definitely a few moments where you think you know what's going on and then it kind of changes, so I definitely love that, and I definitely can't wait to pick up the next book. But other than that, I really enjoyed this book. If you love dark academia, you love character studies, morally great characters, I would definitely recommend this one, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. Then the last fantasy book I read for July was Ignite Me. This is the 3rd book of the Shadow Me series, so I don't want to say too much since it is the 3rd book, but I definitely enjoyed this one. I definitely feel like the pacing really picked up in this one, and the drama and the plot kind of escalated and moved forward. I feel like the first couple of books we were kind of just sitting still and doing a lot of talking, a lot of planning, and in this book we finally got some action. Definitely a major like turning point in the plot, so I'm definitely excited to see like what the rest of the series is like. I ended up giving this book 5 stars. I would say 4.5 stars now that I've sat with it for a little bit, but 4.5 stars. And then last night I finished The Legacy by Elle Kennedy. This is the 5th book of the Off-Campus series, and in this book we're actually not following a new couple, we're actually following all 4 couples from the previous 4 books, which I just thought was really cool. It was kind of like an extended epilogue. We get to see each couple go on to do like grown-up milestones like weddings, proposals, babies, and job offers, everything like that. It was just really fun to see them after college and like an extended version of their life from the first like 4 books, and it was fun, it was fast, and I really enjoyed seeing these characters again. I just feel like these characters kind of feel like real people, like they have real struggles and real milestones and everything like that. It kind of just felt like you're catching up with an old group of friends, which was really fun, although some of the writing definitely cringes me out in this book, and I forgot how bad the spice was, so because of that I ended up giving it 3 stars. And then earlier this month I read A French Affair by Fforde. This is another one that definitely took me by surprise because again I've never heard of that author, and I've had this on my TBR for years, but I really enjoyed it. It's about this guy who owns this antique shop and he's kind of trying to save it, but he doesn't really have many options left besides to sell. And then our main female character, she was left a spot at his antique store by her aunt, I believe, and she works in PR and she has this brilliant plan to try and save his antique shop, and he's just kind of giving her attitude the whole time, but eventually they work it out. He's the one who's like introducing her to the world of antiques, and I guess with antique selling you really have to have like knowledge about the items and like go to auctions and stuff and go to these fairs and buy stuff and like negotiate, and he was kind of just the one who was teaching her all of that. But I feel like the romance in this book was really cute, and that's kind of what saved it for me. I'm not too sure if I enjoyed the writing that much, to be honest. It just felt a little slow and drug out, but either way I ended up giving it 3 stars. Then I read another Elle Hazelwood book, which was Problematic Summer Romance, and I absolutely ate this book up. In this book we get age gap romance and brother's best friend. You get to see like their history of the past 3 years of them forming a friendship and like him just literally always being there for her. In this book they're at her brother's wedding in Italy and they're trying to play it cordial. He stopped talking to her 10 months ago and she's kind of like confronting him and everything. Definitely would recommend it as a summer read, and I feel like Elle Hazelwood always makes her female main characters so funny and so witty, and I absolutely love that. So I ended up giving this one 4 stars. And the last book I have to talk about that I read in July is Time of Your Life by Jessa Hastings. I absolutely loved Jessa Hastings' writing. So in this book, we're following Joa, who's a big rock star, and then Isolde, who is a big model. And they're both famous, so they're both going to be in like the tabloids and stuff. But they end up meeting and they instantly hit it off. They instantly fall in love with each other, but they're both famous people, so there's going to be a lot of like speculation and stuff like that around the relationship. And I feel like the relationship is going to be rocky for a while. I feel like they have a lot to work on and a lot to talk about, but I'm definitely excited to see all of that in the next book, whenever that is. I definitely enjoyed it. I definitely loved the premise of a rock star and model together. I ended up giving Time of Your Life 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. I loved Jessa Hastings' writing in this book and getting to know these characters on such a deep and emotional level. So 5 stars. But that brings us to the end of today's video. So in June, I read a total of 9 books, and then in July, I read a total of 6. But for me to have 15 books sitting next to me right now for 2 months, I'm actually so proud of that and so proud of how much I read over the past 2 months. I also had some really good reads the past couple of months. So I've had a successful summer of reading so far. I feel like every summer I usually hit a reading slump, so I'm very proud of this and I'm definitely excited to see what I read next. And I hope you are too. So I will see you in my next video. Bye.